At this time, I'd like to call the Adams Central Area School District Budget Hearing and Annual Budget Hearing to order. As the meeting properly noticed.
Yes.
Could you all rise for pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Third thing is introductions. I'm the board president, but Tom is our Wormuth, right?
Correct.
Tom Wormuth is our new superintendent, and I'm going to introduce Ronnie Vanderheyden, and she's going to give the presentation explanation of the 2018-2019 budget financial report.
At the present time, I'm not going to go through line by line with you guys. I'm going to summarize it, and at the end, if you have questions, just let me know. So, as we started off, we began the year with $3.22 million in our fund balance, and we ended with $4.22 million in our fund balance. We had planned on increasing our fund balance by $71,852, but as of the time that this was presented, we increased it $997,045. And so as you see that, when you look at the 19-20 budget next to it, you're also going to see that for the 19-20, we're under budgeted $229,915. This will change due to late hires, extracurricular updates, school improvement, planning and finalization of the equalization aid and revenue cap. We had just found out this information right before we did it. Tom was new, everyone was new, so it was like kind of putting the numbers and never to go do anything with them yet. We still have time. I did want to show you guys what our fund balance history is, because it does sound like, when we put a lot of money back in there, that this is kind of terrible, but back in 14-15, we were at 21% of our fund balance, and then every year we kept dipping down, getting down to 16% on some years, and back up to 17. Now we're actually back up to 22% again. So this will be the first time. When I do go to trainings and stuff, Bear, who does a lot of the presentations, has even shown where people that have a 35% fund balance sometimes still have to short-term borrow. It all depends when the money comes in and everything else. So there's no set line, but we were really starting to get pretty low. And so this was a good thing. Why did we underspend in 2018-19? I think there was a lot of factors. Again, we went in thinking that we were going to put away at least $71,000. In October, Governor Walker had turned around and gave us a $100 revenue cap increase that we kind of weren't expecting, and we were hoping to do some curriculum stuff with it as the year went through. So we did budget that way, thinking that would happen. We were in the first year of our $950,000 non-recurring exemption, and I think one of the biggest factors that affected us was our leadership turnover. The minute that you have a district administrator that says they're leaving, you kind of put everything on hold because they're already starting to move that way. And as we move into January or March and start planning our next year, they sometimes don't push us because they're not going to be here. So they're not going to start taking on initiatives or doing things because they are going to be here. This was, and that's not faulting Jim at all, but one of the things about Jim is I had told him that I thought we had quite a bit of money left over even by April. And of course, one of his promises when we started the $950,000 referendum was we need to start building back up our fund balance. So he was just as pleased to say, let's put it in there and you guys can do something with it in the future. Our insurance was down for our workers' compensation. There's a lot of times when we have big claims, and I must have lost track that we were already on our 3rd year of it, and it fell off on the 4th year, and so it did. We didn't have to pay quite as much that year. I estimated that the health insurance was going to be around 10%, and it came in at 6, right around the 6. We've been very fortunate the last few years because we have had low insurance increases, even though we've made adjustments. But everyone keeps, telling us that I have double digits, I have double digits. And we've been fortunate, let's knock on some wood, that we haven't had that. But I was starting to plan for it, thinking it might come. During the year, we had 13 snow, ice, flood days. Yes, we did make about 5 or 6 of those up. But even by not coming in during the winter when it's storming and everything else, we can shut down the utilities and do different things and stuff. And even when we make up a day in the spring, we're not affecting quite the utilities like we would have done if it was during that time. With those unpaid days, we had a lot of support staff that didn't get paid. And every time we didn't have a day, I'm thinking, there's more money that we're saving, and yet they're also hurting, so it wasn't a good combination. During the year, we had 5 teachers that resigned, sometimes early in the year, sometimes late in the year. Sometimes we couldn't find a sub, and we combined classes, or we went without. And sometimes we just hired a sub, and if they didn't have a teaching license, then they were considered a sub all year. So meanwhile, I had these positions budgeted at, teacher pay with benefits, and it's not happening. So during the year, we also had declining enrollment in 4K in summer school. We got a contract with renewal, and I think I saved about $20,000 that I didn't have to pay them, but all that meant was we didn't have kids there. So it's not really a savings because we're going to pay for it in the long run. We didn't have substitute teachers. Over the years, we have always had this budget for subs, and we have always gone over it somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000. And this year, we were $40,000 underneath it. We can't find subs, and it's a big impact on our staff. So that has a huge impact on the budget too. You guys did a late meeting in June and for some curriculum for the science, and we did not receive the invoices in time before we had to close down for the auditor. So I had to roll those over into this year. So even though we didn't spend it last year, I have to budget for them this year coming out. So, and then we were fortunate. We weren't sure if we were going to get the carryover funding for our school counseling grant, and we were lucky enough too. And Crystal had budgeted that our social worker would come out of that. So meanwhile, I had it budgeted just in case, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be approved. And when we got the funding, which we found out right after it was approved, then we could take it out of the grant instead.
Stan, Ryan, can I just make a couple comments on this so people can really understand? If I can just hit a couple highlights, if you don't mind. One of the real key issues is the health insurance, so the last item on the left-hand column. And so that's a testament to our employees. When we're budgeting a 10% increase on an annual basis, so our budget estimate was significantly higher than the 6% rate that we actually got. That means that our employees are good consumers of health care. And it's great for the district in any given year, but also realize a few years with excessively high claims can turn that around. So we were kind of lucky. The other thing is that $100 revenue cap increase came late in the year from Governor Walker. So that impacted districts across the state of Wisconsin. So we're able to increase $100 that we weren't anticipating when you heard this presentation last year, per student that we serve. So those are things that are really unanticipated but very beneficial. And then the other thing is the snow days. Understand that we save on payroll, busing, and utilities when we have snow days. Unfortunately, that's oftentimes on the double-edged sword of that is that some of our employees are not receiving pay on those days, so it creates hardship with some of the families that are connected to our district. So, thank you.
Last year, in 2018-19, we had 2 grants that ended. And the first one is our after-school grant. We had it for 20 years. It was $100,000 when it began. And then during the last 9 years, it was at $50,000. And then any time that we might have gone over the $50,000, we took it out of Fund 80, which was community service. And so that's how that went. The other one that we lost is our breaking down student barriers. That was the one that Crystal was able to write for the social worker for 1 more year. We received $800,000 over the last 4 years, and we have received social workers. We are now up to 3 of them in our district that we were able to absorb. And we were able to implement a lot of positive action, student assistance programs, trauma-sensitive schools, positive behavioral interventions and supports, and safe school ambassadors. There's probably more. This is such a hard thing for me to even talk about, and I hadn't gotten to see Crystal when I was doing this, because we had the AWARE grant at the same time, and of course, Dad did a lot of the same things, so some of those which restorative and stuff, maybe that came out of here or came out of AWARE, but they were both giving us the same programs that we could implement in our school district. Our changes for Fund 10 during 2019-2020, of course, you guys added 3 special ed teachers, 1 at each level of our district. We added an instructional coach at the high school. We eliminated 3 paraprofessionals in order to make that happen. We moved Grand Marsh special education students into Adams French Elementary. We changed from a reading specialist to a curriculum director. And then right before this meeting, we received a $300 increase for our revenue cap instead of the $100. And the one thing that I did leave off that I remember today is that we also are receiving an extra $88 in per pupil aid. And so all of this is kind of in there yet, but it's, again, this is by no means a solid budget as we go forward. Special education, which is on page 4, you'll see an increase in special ed in 1920. The reason is the 3 special ed teachers that you just had us hire, but now for the first time, all of our social workers are being budgeted by us, in partially in Fund 27, partially in Fund 10.
Can I bounce back to the special ed funding for a second, if you don't mind? It was a big issue in Governor Evers' proposed budget. He was talking about funding special education at 60% or sometimes 2/3 funding for special education. Right now, special education is funded. Did they move it up to 30 or did they move it up to like 26?
It's now moved to 26.
Okay, so it was 24.5%. So school districts were reimbursed at approximately 1/4 for every dollar that you spent. Moving it up to 26% is going to help a little bit, but the issue is the Fund 10 to Fund 27 transfer in school districts, and you'll hear about this politically at meetings. So we take, in the Adams Friendship Area School District, approximately $2.2 million, it's approximate, out of Fund 10 every year to balance Fund 27, which is what we spend for students with special needs. Now, it's the right thing to do, we should be doing it, but I just want you to understand how that impacts the instruction that we provide to all of the students we serve. And that's pretty typical across the state of Wisconsin. People are having this massive amount of money that they have to transfer from their general fund to their special ed fund to balance special ed out at the end of the year. So you're going to hear a lot of, it's going to be a political issue for the upcoming, probably the next 2 or 3 years. Thank you.
For debt service, our Fund 38 and 39, I just want this to go on record that all my numbers and all my boxes fit on my slide. I don't know why this one is so big, but, so as you can tell, we had 3 Fund 38 loans and we had 1 39. By making our principal payments this year, we only have 2 loans left, and one is the $21,000 that is a QZAB loan for the track, and then we have our energy exemption that's all we had left. So our indebtedness is $639,962 going into July. It was never our intention to go debt-free, but again, leadership turnover has made some of this happen, because it's hard to bring someone new on and say, hey, we gotta go and do this right away. So that is part of our, what has happened to this. So, and because of that, then we're also really dropping the mill rate. So we'll show that as we get further. Our energy exemption debt, this is the first year that it was, we had a full year of savings, because we were building the finance center and they were still building stuff. We had kind of a situation. So in 27, you can see that we utility cost savings of $27,000, and in 2018, you can see that we've saved $64,207. And every year we have guaranteed that we'll have an operation and maintenance savings of $28,386. So that's how that's going. Fund 49, we had it this year because we sold Pineland for $125,000, and we sold Russia Creek for $185,000. And with that money, we turned around and used it to put boilers and controls and install air conditioning in at AFB. So if you look on page 5, you will notice that in 18-19, you'll see the revenue come in, and then you'll see going into 19-20, we had about $55,000 left because it happened over the summer. And we just made our last payment out of Fund 49 last week. So that fund will be paying out. Fund 50. Ugh. My columns line up. I'm telling you, this drives me nuts. It does. This year I just showed that we have served 172,782 lunches that we served. We served 121,515 breakfasts. You can see that we serve a lot of milk breaks. We do a lot of snacks for the after-school program. And then we have about 14,201 suppers that we serve. Again, our kids in 4K through 8th grade eat free due to the community eligibility program, and students 9 through 12 paid $270 if they were a paid student and 40 cents if they were on reduced. We went in at this time with a profit of $110,758. That's unaudited, and if you notice in the booklet that she is now running about $329,594 in her fund balance. So we have been talking about what to do with it and what we can do at the schools to help them out and everything else. But one of her things is that she's watching is if we ever decide to build somewhere, she has money now that she can help outfit her kitchen the way that she would want to. It's not that she wouldn't move a lot of this stuff in, but there might be other stuff that comes up. So we're kind of in a, what are we going to do for our future? Fund 80, this year we are proposing that we raise this up $69,000 due to the loss of the after-school program. Fund 80 is coming under big scrutiny down at DPI, and there are some things that you can do with it and some things that you can't. One of the things you can do with community service is have a latchkey program for students so that they are taken care of before or after school, but it has to be open to all students that are age appropriate. And so we can do that, but we can't do it if we spend it out of Fund 10 first, and then next year decide, hey, we want to take it out of Fund 80 next year. Once we do it out of 10, it has to come out of 10. So this is actually kind of like our opportunity to take it out of 80 and use this funding mechanism for our future. And so I did show in the booklet that what Fund 80 can be used for, and a little bit of what we use the 6 things for, like our school police liaison. You know, it can't be just a liaison that does work between the hours of 8 and 4. He has to do community support, he has to talk to adults, he has to work outside of the hours of the day and different stuff like that. But I did, when we have done all of this stuff, if you look at the bottom, I did factor it out where the 69,000 will impact our mill rate a nickel, and a nickel on a $100,000 home is $5. And I'm just thinking that at this time, this might be a good investment for our future.
And it's just important to know, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
that if you start a program from Fund 10, general fund, you can't ever then move, at least the way the current rules and regulations are written, out of Fund 10 into 80. So as we've lost the funding mechanism for our after-school program at Adams French's Elementary, this would give us an opportunity to do that, fund that program out of Fund 80 to community fund, and it would provide some stability for that program over time. Thank you.
We also want to note that it's a little bit more than what the 50,000 that we had in the past, but at the present time, our middle school is on their 19th year of it, so they have one more year to have their after-school grant. Just by the way, it's kind of working out, I'm not sure that we'll get it in the future. So then we would be ready to take that one on also. Our property tax levy, as you can tell, in 17-18, our mill rate was 9.24. This year, in 18-19, we went in with a mill rate of 8.28. I want you guys to remember that when Jim was selling the referendum in 17-18, he just wanted us to keep our mill rate right around 9.24 with the way that the revenue caps work and everything else in our declining enrollment and our high property values. You can see that we went down in 18-19, 96 cents. And even with raising the community service levy up a little bit, we're still dropping at the present time 26 cents a mill. So now we're at 8.02. That's what we're being estimated at. But our big difference on some of those levies has been our debt service. You can see that we had 2.6 million in 17-18, 688 last year, and then this year nothing but 39. So that is helping us kind of keep that mill rate down.
It's helping us, but lack of debt also creates mill rate instability over time. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's difficult to ever bring that mill rate back up. So I understand why Mr. Babel was concerned about keeping the mill rate around 9.25.
We did have an audit statement that is in there that shows that we had no problems doing our audit with Russell Evans last week, and that will be our last audit statement from them. And then I would entertain any questions. Yes.
Substitute teachers, what's our pay rate for the daily sub?
$100. And after 10 days, if they're long-term, then they go to a base. The daily rate of base.
This has been for quite a while, hasn't it, $100? Have you ever thought about increasing it, Mr. Pease?
That's up to Tom.
I don't know what basically, my first question would be, what do our neighbors
Yeah.
pay their something? I don't have that answer at the top of my head right now. I will call CISA Power tomorrow and see if they've done surveys. I think they have.
Yeah, sure.
They're all, CISA's also working on a sub thing for the whole CISA 5 region too, a database that people could draw from.
Don't they also have a, like a training or orientation for?
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
For Fund 80, that 200,000, is that stable? Will that be year after year? Okay, so if we do create some of those ideas, school liaison, or I saw another position with the community,
Engagement coordinator.
that it would be stable, that that fund would continue to,
That's why I showed you when I gave you kind of the, in your packet, the revenue cap you can see, or the levy for Fund 80. We were really low for a couple of years, but by the time I got here, it was at 131,000, and we just held it steady the whole time, and then just kind of shifted around and took more out of it for the after-school program or less. And last year, we really thought it was important to take that police liaison out of there. Because again, you didn't want to put it in Fund 10, because once you put it in Fund 10, you could never get it back out. So by hiring the second one for the first time, we used a legitimate reason why we should have a community service fund. So yeah, but it is our intention to hold it flat.
And if the middle school doesn't receive funding for after-school care and programming next year, most likely my recommendation, and I think Ron would agree, is to then put that expenditure on Fund 80 as well.
On the audit, were there any other pages to this audit, or was this the only 3 pages?
The 3 pages is just a letter to show, this is what has always been in our packets, and it's just to show that they encountered no problems. There was nothing that they saw that was alarming. In the audit report itself is where the findings are of what we have to do, and we have been written up, I think for the last 8-9 years, that we should be doing our own financial statements, and I think there's something else that we have to do, but it's kind of the standard one that's in a lot of people's, because we just don't have the personnel to do that kind of stuff.
Is that something the board can get?
Yeah, it
The whole
was,
copy, we got it once.
yeah, you got it when we did the.
Oh, you might not got it because
He
you
got
got it in
it.
December. You did get it.
He got it because that's when he mentioned that they
That
could
we
come
should
and
do
speak.
it, we should come and speak,
Yep.
yeah.
That full audit report and that findings was in the December board meeting. But I can get you a copy if you want a different one.
Would you like me to have the new organization that's doing our audit come to speak when they present
Yeah.
us with the information?
Oh, yeah.
Johnson Law?
They knew that was part of their contract.
Okay, good. Thank you.
we've never had that. Since the grants ended under Fund 10, so we're taking over the salaries of the social workers, the 3. So what does that come to?
We kind of treat them like, yeah. By putting them into Fund 27 now, they're now ours. We can receive 59% of it categorical aid, so we'll get the 24% back on it. So those people are budgeted half-time, 59% in Fund 27 and 41% in Fund 10. That was all part of why we needed the 950,000, was so that we could keep those positions and stuff. We figured that they probably go in at, like a teacher, like 80,000, 90,000 per position. So we've probably taken on about 275,000.
So as we look down the pike here in the next 3 to 4 years, will we have to look at those positions disappearing as
I think
the
it's more of what is our priorities.
Okay.
And we have found out that those are our priorities. And so I think we would try to work on it, or we would try to go to redo non-recurring referendum when ours ends, to try to keep them again.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Hearing none, I get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Melissa and Ken?
you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With that, we're going to move right into the Adams Central Area School District Annual Meeting. If I can find my agenda. Oh, yeah, there. Has the meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
With that, we need election of a chairperson. I'll take nominations.
I'll nominate her, please. Second.
Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, we'll vote on the motion. That includes the audience, anybody who's in the Adams Central Area District, and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. With that, I'll appoint Stacy McManus as the minutes clerk. Number 4 is a reading and approval of the August 27, 2018 budget hearing and annual meeting minutes. I would request a motion that we waive the reading and just approve the budget hearing and annual minutes. Is there so a motion?
So moved.
I move to waive the reading of the minutes from 2018 and meeting.
Kent, I got you first, you second. So motion made by Kent, second by Barb Ramsey to waive the reading but approve the minutes of August 27, 2018 budget hearing and annual meeting minutes. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Those are approved. With that, we'll go back to Ronnie for presentation and explanation of 2019-2020 budget. Is there any questions? She just went through it for the last half an hour. Is there any questions for Ronnie at this point? Or Tom?
Ronnie, can I ask for clarification? Clarification on categorical aid is that the state gives us that money, so it's really technically out of our funds, it's about half their salary. Am I correct in like layman's terms? And trying to explain categorical aid? Okay. So when we're talking about social workers, let's say they're 90,000, 45,000, if I'm explaining this correctly, is coming out of our funds, the other part is for the state's reimbursing us. All right?
No, we're still only getting,
Well, 59.
no, we get the charge 59% to Fund 27, and then we get 24% on the 59%.
Okay. So we get the quarterback of your salary? Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Is there any more questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion from the floor to adopt the 2019-2020 tax levy. Mr. Jones.
I'd like to be it resolved that school taxes for the 2019-2020 school year be levied in total amount of $11,349,530, of which $11,031,010 is general fund levy, $118,520 for debt service, $200,000 community service tax levy.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Garrett Gould. Motion been made by Mr. Jones, second by Garrett, to move to adopt the total tax levy of $11,349,530, of which $11,031,010 is general fund levy, $118,520 is irreversible debt service levy, and $200,000 is a community service levy fund. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Salary recommendation approved for Board of Education members. Before the motion is made, I have some research I was asked to do. Couple things. Last year, the board made $2,150, which we paid in one lump sum in April. There's been some people that asked, what if we got paid by the meeting? We used to get paid by we used to get a lump sum and paid by any special meetings. okay? That at that time was $65 per meeting, and a lump sum was right around 1,800, if I'm not, I'm pretty close to what that was. Last year, we did 23 meetings. That's without committee meetings. So I did some math, and it roughly comes about $70 a meeting, and $30 for a committee meeting. So it'd be roughly $170 a month if we went by a monthly wage. I also asked Ronnie to ask other directors if we fell under the federal wage
Fair labor standard.
fair labor standard, which would mean as you serve, you have to get paid. We're elected officials, so that does not, we found out that because we're elected officials, we don't necessarily fall under that. So we don't have to get paid by month, we can still get paid by the lump sum, or we can do whatever the people want. If people have questions or discussion, please do it now before the motion is made. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just, from a tax reporting purposes, I can tell you the prior district that I served on that board, we got paid monthly. Regardless, you're going to be paying out that sum. It just shows up in your taxes the year that it actually is somewhat accrued. It's not a huge difference on your taxes, but I guess the older that you get, and if you're in certain financial conditions, it may affect, if you're on some type of aid and you're on this board, it could potentially affect your aid. It makes sense to do it monthly, and it's no expense to the district. It just makes it a lot cleaner.
Well, if we went monthly, I guess I asked Ryan the same question. Then do we want to get paid by the meeting, or do we just divide up even monthly and we have to put in a voucher? Go ahead, Kathy.
And if you don't go to the meetings, you don't get paid for those meetings.
Well, I don't necessarily know that.
Okay.
That ain't what he's proposing here. He's proposing that we basically, whatever they approve, we split into 12 months and you just get that monthly check.
So the business of 70 and 30.
No, that would be, I'm just saying if we went to a meeting where if people don't show up, then we'd go to a voucher thing where you'd sign what you did for the month and then you'd hand it in the business office. Okay? Go ahead, Barbie.
Do we know what other districts are planning? I just hope we're comparable and.
I used to bring that stuff and we're kind of right in the middle, or maybe a little low, but we're about in the middle. What did Stephen's point? Can you answer that question?
$4,500.
It was 45, but they're a lot bigger than us. I mean, they're triple our size.
Same amount of meetings.
Same amount of meetings.
They do the same thing. They're just a bigger district. That's the only difference.
Tom, how did River Valley
I think
pay?
it would be comparable.
But we're comparable. I looked at other districts.
Okay.
We're right in there.
Right. I guess I really don't have. I guess I like to pay lump sum, and I can do something with that money at one time. So I'm not a saver. I'm a spender. I'll tell you that right now. But I guess as other board members, I don't want to pull the board, but go ahead, Kathy.
Does that put a burden on resource?
She
Payroll,
puts it in a
anything?
spreadsheet, and
Right,
that's
there's
it.
a worksheet now in payroll that she just pulls it in.
Thank
monthly.
you. I just wanted to make sure it
Yeah,
wasn't
that's fine.
extra burden.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Just on the monthly meeting or the lump sum, I guess with the total number, is there a way that, does it have to come from this meeting, whether you do it by the month or by the whole year? It does have to come from that?
Yes, they have to go in
Okay.
that motion at
And
this
I'm
time.
not getting a very good vibe on this. It's a decision. I'd like to help you out, but I don't know how to go if you prefer that. I know I'd like to raise that up.
I mean, if the board would like to say when they talk here, how they'd like to do it, we could probably figure it out. So, I guess you know where me and Jeff are, if anybody else would like to kind of say where they'd like to be, I'm okay with that.
I don't care, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was okay getting it in a lump sum. Lump sum.
Some fine with me.
3 and 3.
I make a motion.
All right, let's make a motion.
Do you want me to read a motion?
Ah,
I can do it.
all right.
Be it resolved that the salaries of the school board members for the 2020 school year be estimated as follows: $2,250 per year and IRS rate per mile.
Barbie? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
She said 2,250.
Yeah.
It's 150. Oh, you're giving us
Thank you.
Cost of living index,
I
right?
just see, it was 1.9, so that's like $50, and I'd like to add to that too, so. I'm seconding the motion.
All right. Second by Garrett. We can now discuss. Go ahead, John.
I don't want to raise. I mean, we have some major challenges. I mean, it's a token, and I appreciate it. I don't do this for the money. I do it because, you know, I have a vested interest in this community. I can tell you some states, my brother served on the school board for a lot of years in Illinois, they don't even compensate them for it. We've got some significant financial challenges coming down the road, and we need every dollar. Again, I appreciate it, but I can tell you, when it comes to a vote, I will be voting against it.
I tend to agree with you on a different reason, and my reason is, right now, it's a luxury to have 9 people on this board, and if we keep raising the pay, eventually I see us going down to 7 or possibly 5, and I would never want that, because I think 9 people make up a good variety of what the people in the community want and need. So I think that giving us a raise, I mean, we got a raise last year, I think of $100 or $50, and I don't want to price this stuff up. I like 9 people on the board, and I think that's we're right in the wheelhouse of everybody else, so that's where I'm at also. So if you'd like to, go ahead, John.
Call the question.
Do you want us to amend it then?
We'll get a vote on it, and then we can do another one if we'd like.
Okay.
All right. I think we better just have a show of hands. So, Jim, you'll have to do, you're the clerk. So you'll have to, I can do the clerk, Kathy? That's right, you're the vice president. Kathy, you'll have to count.
Okay.
So, all in favor of, let me read the motion first. Be resolved that salary of school board members of the 2019-2020 school year be established as follows: $22.50 per year, IRS rate per mile included. So, is there any more discussion on that? All in favor, raise your hand. 2. Opposed? A lot more. The motion fails.
Okay, I'll make a motion then. Be resolved that the salaries of the school board members for 2019-2020 school year be established as follows: $21.50 per year, IRS rate per mile.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Barbie.
Motion made by Garrett, second by Barbie, to be resolved the salaries of school board members for 2019-2020 school year be established as follows: $21.50 per year plus IRS rate per mile. With that discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Authorized for reimbursement of Board of Education member expenses. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Who was that?
Kevin.
Kevin, thank
Be
you.
resolved to authorize the payment of actual necessary expenses of the school board member who travel in the performance of duties.
Motion made by Kevin Moore. Is there a second?
I'll second. Michelle?
Michelle? Motion made by Kevin, second by Michelle. Be resolved to authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of school board member when traveling in the performance of duties. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. New business may be properly come before the meeting. Is there any new business that needs to come before this annual meeting? I guess I'll say something. One of the things that's on the board that they passed a law that said that we can sell school board property. I know the county is talking about asking us for some property for their county forest. I would say that we should have another annual meeting to see if that should go or not. I don't think we should do that without asking you, the constituents, and the rest of the board for us to make that decision. But I know they passed, in the county, they passed it last month that they're putting in about 120 acres in the county forest. That's already passed, so I'm sure they're going to come asking us. So just something that would be on the plate, but I want you guys to know that I don't think we should make that decision without coming back to the people at an annual meeting. And that used to be like that back in the day. Until
You could only sell property at this meeting.
At this meeting, or if we call the meeting. And now we sold those 2 schools without calling this meeting. Go ahead,
So
Kathy.
clarification, you're saying that the county might come to us to ask to buy some school district property?
No, what they're going to ask us to do is ask us to give it to them. We would get 80% if they cut the forest there. We get 70%, the township it's in gets 20%, and then 10% of that money goes back to pay for any additional monies they get. What they're trying to do is get collateral by more land, and they can get grants and Knowles grants to buy more with the more property they get. So they're trying to build up enough land so they can buy more for their county forest.
To keep it as a forest?
Yeah, it'll stay as a forest,
Okay.
but they'll do all the forestry on it, they'll do all the DNR, yep. It's just something that might come down, it might not happen. I want to make sure people here knew that that could happen and might happen. I think it's only fair. With that, is there any other business that may come properly before the meeting? With that, authorized date for the 2021 budget hearing and annual meeting. We will make it the 4th Monday, August 24th, 2020. So mark your calendars, I expect you all here. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Who was that?
Harvey.
Harvey? Is there a second? Second. Ken? Ron? Motion made by Barb Ramsey, second by Ron. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming.